A hotel surrounded by luxury but lacking humanity. A man appears to be just an ordinary guest. However, his appearance is deceiving. Keanu, with his deep sense of peace and patience, decides to teach everyone in the hotel lobby a lesson that will change their lives. As a receptionist tries to belittle him with mocking glances and a condescending attitude, everything changes in the face of Keanu's calmness. Humanity, respect, and true leadership. This isn't just a moment in a hotel, but the beginning of a lesson that applies to every aspect of life. So, what will Keanu's silent strength change? For more inspiring videos like this, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be here every week with new stories. Thank you for your support. When Keanu Reeves stepped through the revolving doors of the glamorous hotel in a black hoodie and simple jeans, he seemed to be a complete contrast to the lavish atmosphere of the luxury lobby. The gold-embroidered wide chairs, massive chandeliers, and elegant marble columns clearly shouted that this place was designed for only the elite guests. However, Keanu's expression remained calm as always, with a deep serenity in his eyes. He took just one step and inhaled the heavy air of the moment. The other guests, seemingly lost in luxury, chatted with expensive drinks in hand, unaware of the presence of this humble man. As Keanu looked around at the shining world around him, he continued his steps with inner peace. He knew he would never truly belong to this world, but still he wasn't all that bothered by it as he was here in the present moment. The receptionist, adjusting his red tie, was glancing at the computer on the counter. At that moment he noticed the man entering through the door. At first glance he thought Keanu was just an ordinary guest. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit, nor did he carry any fancy bags. For a brief moment he tilted his head slightly and rolled his eyes, then let out a sigh and forced a smile on his face. The entrance of a man who didn't fit the spirit of this place unsettled him. But at the same time, Keanu's calm demeanor and posture told him that something was unusual. In that moment, the receptionist's patient mask slipped a little, and with an unseen attention, he began to watch Keanu. "How's the size, can I help you?" the receptionist said, but there was a noticeable indifference in his voice. His eyes never left the screen, as if every new customer was a burden. Keanu nodded silently, squinted his eyes slightly, paused for a moment, then spoke calmly, "I'd like to book a room." His words floated slowly in the air, but there was no sense of hurry or pressure in his tone. The receptionist took a deep breath and began to examine his computer more carefully, but in the face of Keanu's serene posture, he started to set aside all the prejudices he had about encountering just another regular guest. The simplicity in Keanu's request, as it once was immediately understandable. Beyond the place he was in, there was another place entirely. A slight smirk appeared on the receptionist's face. Pretending to check the screen, he quickly scanned Keanu from top to bottom. Since the hotel's clientele usually consisted of business people, celebrities, and high-ranking figures, it was clear that Keanu was not one of them. His simple clothes suggested he was not someone who would make big purchases. An involuntary bias surfaced in him. What was this man doing here? However, these thoughts were hidden behind the professional mask on the surface. An internal coldness became more evident with every passing second. Keanu's presence was an unfamiliar situation for the receptionist. Yet, the tranquility in his eyes was a puzzle that was difficult to fully solve. "This is quite an expensive hotel, sir," the receptionist's voice echoed with clear sarcasm. As his eyes drifted over Keanu, the smirk on his face became even more noticeable. Then, while mentioning the name of a less prestigious hotel, he added, "I know a place that might be more suitable for you." His words carried a sort of elegant, masked disdain, as if Keanu's presence here was a mistake. But Keanu, with his usual calmness, paid no attention to the mocking attitude. He simply narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled. Slowly he said, "I'd like to book a room." His voice was neither sarcastic nor angry, it was just firm. His self-assurance stood ahead of everything. Although Keanu seemed to ignore the man's attitude, a few people in the lobby had noticed the scene. Eyes briefly focused on him, silently watching this strange interaction. Some guests, hearing the receptionist's polite yet condescending words, exchanged glances and tried to hide their surprise for a brief moment. One of the hotel employees, observing the scene from a distance, furrowed his brows, still unable to focus despite Keanu's calm demeanor. But Keanu, unfazed by the gazes around him, spoke again with a slight smile on his face, "I would like to stay at this hotel. Do you have any available rooms?" The calmness and determination in his voice brought a brief silence to the entire lobby. There was no trace of worry behind his words, just a simple request, to stay here. His quiet and confident stance carried a meaning that questioned everything around him. His tone was calm, even peaceful, but this in no way affected the receptionist's impatience. Sighing, he shook his head from side to side and said in a low voice, "I don't think so." Then he glanced at the computer screen again, as if Keanu's presence was an unnecessary obstacle. "Also, your reservation doesn't appear," he added, with a more noticeable sarcastic tone this time. Between his words, there was an implication that Keanu didn't deserve a place at the luxury level of the hotel. However, Keanu, without losing his calmness, simply tilted his head slightly and once again, politely but firmly, said, "I don't have a reservation. But I would like to stay here. I would like to book a room." The peaceful expression on his face remained, as if this was just an ordinary request, something that the other luxury guests of the hotel might imagine. Despite noticing the receptionist's pride and prejudice behind his insinuating words, Keanu continued to stand calmly without changing his expression. He gave no reaction. He simply maintained his inner peace. However, the atmosphere in the lobby began to slowly shift. Some guests found the situation uncomfortable and started whispering to each other, exchanging glances. A few staff members instinctively began to sense the first signs of an approaching storm. The tension hung in the air. The contrast between Keanu's calmness and the receptionist's attitude was drawing the attention of everyone around them. But the real surprise had not yet come. This silent battle was only the beginning. The storm would erupt after this silence. Keanu Reeves' gentle and patient demeanor did not change the receptionist's mocking gaze. On the contrary, the man's condescending attitude became even more evident. He clicked unnecessarily on the computer a few times, pretending to look at the screen, as if trying to create an air of importance around what he was doing. Then, with a noticeable roll of his eyes, he turned to Keanu. With an expression that seemed to ask, "Are you sure you want to stay here?" He once again sized Keanu up. Every movement he made was filled with an implication that Keanu had no right to be there. However, Keanu showed no sign of nervousness. The calm, peaceful smile on his face never faded. "Look, sir," the receptionist said, his voice echoing with a fake tone of patience. "This isn't a place where just anyone can stay comfortably. I'm talking about people and high-profile guests. You understand what I mean, right?" His words were aimed at excluding Keanu in some way, but they were still said with an unsettling arrogance. His eyes were sparkling as if expecting more from Keanu with every response. The receptionist's attitude had caught the attention of a few more people in the lobby. No one knew exactly what was going to happen, but it was clear something was off in this strange dialogue. Keanu paused for a moment, and with the same peaceful expression on his face, he simply said, "Just a room." In that moment, where peace and calmness triumphed over the growing tension, the atmosphere in the lobby became even more intense. Despite the receptionist's insinuating words, Keanu maintained his calm and said, "I just want a room." There wasn't the slightest hint of tension in his voice, as if this request was the most natural thing in the world. However, the receptionist's mocking expression remained unchanged. The man glanced once again at Keanu's simple clothes, and a slight smile appeared on his face. This smile was clearly condescending, with contempt in his eyes, trying once again to devalue Keanu. "Of course," he said, his voice now laced with even more sarcasm. "Still, keep in mind this hotel is a little different." In that moment, the receptionist's words served not only to belittle Keanu but also seemed to challenge him. However, Keanu continued to remain indifferent to all of these attitudes. His eyes had only one focus: the room. "I think I can suggest a place that's more suited to you," the receptionist said with a mocking tone. He wrote the name of another hotel on a piece of paper from the computer and pushed it across the counter toward Keanu. "This might be more within your budget. Plus, it includes breakfast here, quite a good deal," he added as if Keanu had no right to stay here. The same condescending look was in his eyes, but despite everything going wrong, Keanu showed no signs of anger. He looked at the paper and simply spoke again kindly, "This is the place I've chosen, thank you." His words were calm and firm, as if he were ignoring the receptionist's suggestion entirely. Keanu's every action, only intensifying the tension around him, was taking the atmosphere in the lobby to a whole new level. A few guests and hotel staff in the lobby had witnessed the receptionist's behavior. Some simply glanced briefly and ignored the situation, while others turned their heads with an expression of discomfort, a noticeable unease in their eyes. However, Keanu didn't feel the need to react in any way. There wasn't a trace of anger on his face. On the contrary, he fixed his patient and serene gaze on the receptionist's eyes, standing directly in front of him. In that moment, Despite the tension between both sides, Keanu's calmness had captured the attention of everyone around. His serene demeanor was slowly transforming into a silent challenge against the receptionist's attempts to humiliate him. The tranquility in his eyes gradually absorbed the surrounding chaos, and this calm was powerful enough to extend beyond just a room. "Do you have an available room at your hotel or not?" Keanu repeated, his voice soft yet firm. Each word echoed like a patient request, in harmony with the tension around him, yet unmistakably clear. His words felt like a challenge to the receptionist, but the peace in Keanu's tone only reinforced his resolve. As the receptionist looked into Keanu's eyes, he felt an involuntary discomfort in the face of this calm and serene stance. In that moment, Keanu's desire was not just for a room, but also for the right to claim the real power and dignity beyond this place. The receptionist, watching the man's persistence with a bored expression, shook his head and turned to Keanu with a deep sigh. "Look, I'm telling you it's not very likely for you to stay here," he said in a blunt tone. The mocking emphasis in his voice was used almost to belittle Keanu. "The people who stay at this hotel have a certain standard," he added, particularly stressing the last word, clearly implying that Keanu had no place here. However, despite everything going against him, Keanu's face didn't show a single wrinkle. His eyes held peace and patience. There was meaning in everything around him, beyond the increasingly tense atmosphere. Keanu recognized that the man was deliberately trying to belittle him, but he didn't give the slightest reaction. His calmness, in contrast to the tense atmosphere in the lobby, seemed to suggest that everything was exactly as it should be. This serenity had intrigued a few more people around him. No matter what, Keanu's demeanor continued to radiate a sense of calm, despite the tension surrounding him. At that moment, the hotel manager noticed the scene and his eyes locked onto Keanu. He paused for a moment, thinking he recognized the man. He found himself realizing, finally, who the person standing across from the receptionist was. In that instant, the astonishment and focus in the manager's eyes became evident. The man he was looking at was far more than just an ordinary guest. In that moment, the receptionist's disrespectful attitude continued, but Keanu's calmness and patience caused the entire atmosphere to shift. Every movement, every word of his was like an ocean maintaining its silence despite the storm. As the receptionist tried to break Keanu's patience, he found himself growing weaker in the face of Keanu's stance. Keanu was so serene that this peace and stillness began to slowly consume the entire tense atmosphere in the lobby. As people watched this extraordinary calmness and determination, they could feel that something was beginning to change. Keanu wasn't just asking for a room. He was reshaping the scene, this moment, with his resolve and grace. The hotel manager noticed the silence in the lobby and quickly moved to speak with the receptionist. His eyes were now certain that he recognized Keanu. His heartbeat quickened as he realized who the man in front of him was. Keanu's calmness and determination had reminded him of a familiar figure. The hotel manager, Daniel, now clearly knew who this man was, someone he had recently met. Noticing the receptionist's behavior, Daniel immediately decided to take control of the situation. Slowly but with firm steps, he approached and stood beside the receptionist. His eyes briefly turned toward Keanu, offering a silent salute of respect, before he turned to the receptionist and said, "It seems there has been a misunderstanding." His words resonated with a force that would change the receptionist's attitude. "Do you know what you're doing?" Daniel said, his voice firm but controlled. The tone of his voice echoed in the receptionist's mind, as if it was filling the entire lobby. This sudden and decisive intervention shook the receptionist for a moment. The receptionist, startled by Daniel's approach from behind, quickly turned around. Seeing the serious expression on his manager's face, he realized the weight of his words and paused for a moment. "Sir, I was just trying to offer this gentleman an appropriate accommodation," he said, still with a haughty air, but the mocking tone in his voice was slowly starting to fade. Daniel, without even needing to interrupt his defense, calmly silenced him. "This gentleman," Daniel said, emphasizing every word, "is the owner of this place," and he honored Keanu with his gaze. Those words caused the atmosphere in the lobby to shift abruptly. The receptionist, left speechless, turned red and stood there, stunned by the revelation. It was as if a bomb had dropped into the lobby. The arrogant expression on the receptionist's face vanished instantly, replaced by deep shock and fear. His eyes widened, his mouth slightly opened, and he couldn't utter a single word. The words seemed to be stuck in his throat, frozen in place. The guests and hotel staff surrounding them watched the scene in suspense, holding their breath. Everyone was trying to understand Keanu's identity and what Daniel had said, but the tension in the air left them all condemned to silence. Keanu stood there, still as serene as ever. There wasn't the slightest trace of anger on his face. Instead, despite the receptionist's shock and panic, he still looked at him with a kind expression. It was as if he didn't care about any of this, simply being there, calm and composed. However, Daniel's face was twisted in anger. There was a sense of rebellion in his eyes, as if, after years of patience, he could no longer tolerate being belittled like this. Taking a deep breath, Daniel said in the midst of the silence, "This will never happen again." His words echoed like a clear threat to the receptionist. "I saw how you treated him," Daniel said, his voice stern. "I heard what you said. Just because you work here doesn't mean you can behave like that toward our guests." Every word echoed within the lobby, firm and clear. The receptionist now fully realized the gravity of the situation. Keanu's silence was the harshest response he could have given. Keanu's calmness symbolized a kind of power, one that absorbed every belittling action and word directed at him. The receptionist now understood the enormity of his mistake. Daniel paused for a moment, then took a deep breath before speaking again. "All right, let's give him a chance," he said finally, his tone softening a little. "But remember, this is a one-time opportunity. If something like this happens again, the situation will be different." His words were as much a warning as a lesson. The expression on the receptionist's face shifted from momentary shock to deep regret. Keanu, with his approach to humanity and humility, had shifted the entire situation to a new perspective. The receptionist had not only realized his mistake but had also learned a great lesson from Keanu's patience and maturity. The young man immediately apologized and promised to make a fresh start. Keanu had given him not only a second chance but also restored his dignity and respect. This incident became a valuable lesson for everyone in the hotel. Keanu's humility and patience left a deep impact on both guests and staff. It was more than just about a room. It was a moment about understanding the power of being human and the importance of respect. Keanu's patient and gentle demeanor had deeply affected everyone in the lobby. Hotel staff and guests, watching Keanu's approach to people, listened to every word as if it were a lesson. In that moment, a silence spread through the lobby, and everyone looked at this unique man with admiration. It was clear that Keanu had inspired those around him not only with his calmness but also with the depth and strength of his character. The receptionist could feel the deep understanding and patience in Keanu's eyes. A transformation had begun within him. The humanity Keanu had shown him hadn't just offered him a second chance. It had reminded him of who he was and what kind of person he needed to be. Now, his awareness of himself had grown. Keanu's humility had made him question his own behavior. In that moment, not only had his admiration for Keanu grown, but so had his respect for himself. Throughout the entire lobby, the echoes of this silent yet powerful lesson could be heard. Standing behind Keanu, Daniel said, "This man is the true owner of this hotel and has the courage to do what is right for us. But true leadership is shown when you demonstrate how you treat others." Daniel's voice echoed not just to the receptionist but throughout the entire hotel. Each word touched the hearts of the hotel staff and guests, carrying deep meaning. Keanu is not just a celebrity, he is a true leader. He derives his strength from the respect he shows to others. Daniel's words resonated in the minds of everyone in the lobby, and for a moment as everyone looked at Keanu, he carried that moment with silent leadership and humility as he truly deserved. What Daniel said had ended the tension in the lobby and made everyone recognize the true power within Keanu. Keanu's calm and gentle demeanor reflected the strength and influence of a true leader. Keanu nodded calmly and said, "True strength lies in the ability to be kind to others. And every person deserves respect." His words touched the hearts of everyone in the lobby, echoing inside each individual in the room. The calmness and depth in Keanu's voice made everyone reflect. His leadership was something beyond power and arrogance. It wasn't just a way of behaving, it was a life philosophy. That day the hotel, along with all its staff and guests, learned a great lesson. Every word Keanu spoke had become a way of life, shaping not just that moment but the future. Over time, the hotel became not only a symbol of luxury but also of humanity, respect, and empathy. Everyone felt that they had reached somewhere, not just physically but spiritually. The receptionist looked at Keanu once more and said, "I hope to be someone like you one day." His voice softened. Keanu's patience and humility had transformed him. In that moment, not only Keanu but the entire hotel experienced a transformation. Keanu simply smiled and calmly said, "To be a good leader, you must first learn to be human." His words resonated deeply with everyone around him. He emphasized that leadership wasn't just about position or power, but about showing respect and understanding to others. Then looking at Daniel he added, "Life is an opportunity, we must make the most of every moment." This sentence was a reminder to Daniel and everyone around him. Every moment was an opportunity to make the right decisions and act with humanity. Keanu's words, like those of a teacher, touched everyone's life, reminding them of what truly mattered in life. For more inspiring videos like this, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be here every week with new stories. Thank you for your support.